In 1999, a radiologist on vacation in the Caribbean picked a small green fruit off the sand and bit into it. Within minutes, her throat was closing. But this wasn't some exotic berry from a remote jungle. It was a common shoreline tree, one so toxic that rainwater running off its leaves carries enough poison to blister the skin of anyone who makes the mistake of standing underneath it for shelter during a storm. Today, we're counting down 20 toxic plants that can burn you, scar you, blind you, or put you in a hospital from one careless mistake. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never walk past a garden display the same way again. At number 12, a backyard flower, common across the American South. 4 teenagers once brewed it into tea and woke up in the ER, pupils locked wide open, with zero memory of how they got there. And at number 1, the plant that forced trained soldiers out of the rainforest. One touch drives microscopic silica hairs into the skin that keep firing neurotoxin for weeks. Pain that surges back with cold water, temperature shifts, even pressure from clothing. And it can keep going for months. Let's start counting. Number 20, Manchineel. Even the rain burns. In 1999, a radiologist on vacation in the Caribbean picked up a small green fruit from the sand. She took one bite. Within minutes, her throat was closing. Her name was Nicholas Strickland, and she published the full account in the British Medical Journal the following year. The fruit looked and tasted like a small, sweet apple. She found it lying on a beach in Tobago, scattered under a tree that seemed completely ordinary. That tree was the Manchineel, and the Guinness World Records has formally classified it as the most dangerous tree on Earth. The toxins responsible, hippomanin and phorbol, are present in every part of the tree: bark, leaves, fruit, sap. Contact with the milky white sap causes chemical burns on bare skin, often within minutes. But what separates the Manchineel from nearly everything else on this list is that you do not need to touch it at all. During a rainstorm, water runs down the leaves and bark, picks up the sap compounds, and drips from the branches already contaminated. Anyone who takes shelter under a Manchineel during a tropical downpour will feel the drops begin to burn exposed skin almost immediately. The wood is no safer. Smoke from burning it carries the same compounds into the air, causing severe eye inflammation and damage to the respiratory tract. Caribbean communities have known this for generations. Locals in many areas paint red bands or warning crosses directly onto the trunks. Some islands post signs. Others simply pass the knowledge down by word of mouth. If you ever find a small green apple lying on a tropical beach, leave it exactly where it is. Number 19. Monkshood, weaponized before gunpowder existed. There is a flowering plant that has been used as a weapon longer than gunpowder has existed. Norse warriors rubbed its extract onto arrowheads and blades. Medieval poisoners treated it with a level of caution they gave almost nothing else. In ancient Greek tradition, the plant was linked to Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft, and the stories around it suggest there was good reason for that connection. The active compound is called aconitine, and it goes after the sodium channels in your heart muscle and nerve tissue. It does not need to be swallowed to reach them. Aconitine can enter through broken skin, a small cut on your hand, a cracked cuticle, a split in dry skin around a fingernail. If you are pulling up roots or handling fresh sap without gloves, the compound has a direct path in. Researchers have documented cases of tingling and numbness in the hands after contact, even when no visible wound was present. And yet, monkshood remains one of the more popular flowering plants in American gardens. Tall stems, deep purple blooms shaped like little hoods, striking enough to pass for a high-end ornamental. It is sold at nurseries across the country with no restriction and no warning. Wear gloves every single time you handle it. Do not touch your face until your hands are fully washed. This is a plant that has earned that level of respect over thousands of years. Number 18. Oleander. Millions drive past daily. Every summer, this plant lines highways across Florida and Southern California. Millions of drivers pass it daily without knowing what it carries. Oleander thrives in heat and drought. It needs almost no care, blooms in bright pinks and whites, and stays green through conditions that kill most landscaping. That has made it one of the most widely planted shrubs across the southern United States. Median strips, parking lot borders, residential yards from coast to coast, and every single part of it, from roots to flowers, contains cardiac glycosides strong enough to disrupt the electrical rhythm of the human heart. The sap burns on contact. In the eyes, the reaction is significantly worse, but the danger does not stop at direct touch. There are documented cases of people using oleander branches as skewers to roast food over a fire. The heat drove the compound straight into the meat and caused poisoning. There are also reports of honey produced by bees that fed on oleander blossoms, making people sick after a single serving. You can walk into a nursery right now and buy this plant. No printed warning, no handling instructions, nothing on the tag that tells you what you are about to put 3 feet from your front door. Number 17. Foxglove. Heart cure or heart killer. One of the most prescribed heart medications in history comes from a garden flower that can stop your heart if you confuse it with the wrong herb. Digitalis purpurea is the source of digoxin, a drug used to regulate heartbeats for over 200 years. The same compounds that make the medicine work are present throughout the entire plant: leaves, flowers, seeds, stems, all of it loaded with cardiac glycosides. In a controlled dose, digoxin saves lives. In an uncontrolled amount, it throws the heart into a dangerous rhythm. Touching foxglove can cause mild skin irritation, but the real danger is ingestion. And in the United States, the most common path to that is confusion. Foxglove leaves look strikingly similar to comfrey, a popular ingredient in herbal teas. People have harvested what they believed was comfrey from their own gardens, brewed it, and ended up in the emergency room with cardiac symptoms. The line between the two plants is thin, and the consequences of crossing it are not. Foxglove remains one of the best-selling perennials at nurseries across the country. Tall spikes of bell-shaped flowers in purple, pink, and white. No warning on the label, no caution on the tag. Just a price and a photograph of the bloom. Number 16. Philodendron. Invisible needles at floor level. It needs almost no sunlight. It needs almost no water. Interior designers love it. And its sap is loaded with microscopic needles. The compound is calcium oxalate. It forms crystals shaped like tiny blades inside the plant's tissue. When the fluid touches your skin, those crystals physically pierce the surface on sensitive areas. The result is a burning itch that can linger for hours in the eyes. The reaction jumps to a different level: inflammation, sharp pain, redness that may take days to clear. The part most people never consider is what happens at floor level. A toddler who pulls a leaf off a philodendron and chews on it will feel the crystals immediately. The tissue inside the mouth and throat swells. For a small child or a house cat, that swelling can tighten the airway fast enough to require emergency care. This is likely the most common houseplant on this entire list. It sits in millions of American living rooms right now. When you trim it, cover your hands. Clean them before you touch your face or pick up your child. Number 15. Dieffenbachia, built to silence people. Centuries ago, plantation owners in the Caribbean forced enslaved people to chew the leaves of this plant. The reason was specific and cruel. It made them unable to speak. That history gave Dieffenbachia its common name, dumb cane. The fluid contains the same calcium oxalate crystals as philodendron, but at a noticeably higher concentration. When those crystals reach the tongue and throat, the tissue swells enough to shut down speech for hours. In severe cases, swallowing becomes difficult. You do not need to chew a leaf to run into trouble. Cutting a stem releases the liquid right away. It ends up on your hands. You touch your eye or eat something before cleaning up, and the reaction hits. In the eyes, burning, tearing, and inflammation that can persist for days. On skin, milder but unmistakable. Dieffenbachia sits in offices, hotel lobbies, and apartment hallways across the country. It is one of the most widely used commercial interior plants in the United States. chosen specifically because it handles low light and neglect. The difference between this plant and the philodendron you just heard about comes down to dose. Same crystals, stronger concentration. Number 14. Crown of thorns. Thorns deliver the irritant. The Euphorbia family has over 2,000 species worldwide. They share one thing: a white, milky fluid that behaves more like an industrial irritant than plant liquid. Euphorbia millii is one of the more popular members of that family. Small, drought-tolerant, blooms in vivid reds, pinks, and yellows year-round. People keep it on windowsills, in rock gardens, on back porches. It asks for almost nothing and pays you back with constant color. What it does not advertise is what runs through its stems. Snap a branch and the latex starts flowing immediately. On skin, it burns. In the eyes, the stakes rise fast. There are clinical reports of temporary vision loss after Euphorbia latex reached the eye. The pain alone has sent people to urgent care. Then there are the thorns. Crown of thorns is covered in sharp spines, and the latex coats them. When a spine punctures your skin, it does not just create a wound. It pushes the irritant directly into broken tissue, where the body absorbs it far faster than through the surface. That combination is the variable most people never account for until it is too late. Number 13. Pencil cactus. Pressurized and aimed at eyes. Despite the name, this is not a cactus. It belongs to the same family as crown of thorns, and its latex is considered one of the more aggressive irritants in the entire group. Euphorbia tyricale has a look that sells itself. Thin, bright green, cylindrical branches with almost no visible leaves. It photographs well, and that has made it a favorite in design magazines and on social media. What does not show up in those pictures is what sits inside every branch. The latex is under pressure. Snap a stem during repotting, and it does not seep. It sprays. Hands, arms, face. If it reaches your eyes, the pain is immediate. Emergency room reports document pencil cactus exposure cases where patients described intense burning, swollen lids, and temporary loss of vision. The branches are brittle and break without warning, which is exactly why repotting is the moment most injuries happen. This plant is marketed as a stylish houseplant at garden centers and home stores nationwide. No safety information on the pot, no mention of what sits inside the stems, recognition without knowledge, once again. Number 12. Angel Trumpet. Tea that erased all memory. In 2006, 4 teenagers in Winnipeg brewed tea from a garden plant. Within hours, all 4 were in the emergency room. None of them could remember how they got there. The plant was Brugmansia, and the flowers hang from the branches like enormous bells. They are spectacular. Across the southern United States, people grow them for the visual alone, often without knowing what those blossoms carry inside. The active compounds are scopolamine and atropine, tropane alkaloids that act directly on the central nervous system. A study of 33 hospitalized Brugmansia patients found that every single one experienced pupil dilation, averaging 29 hours. 88% developed delirium, lasting an average of 18 hours. All of them lost the ability to form new memories during the episode. They woke up in hospital beds with no recollection of what had happened. In 2019, a woman in Chula Vista, California, was pruning her Brugmansia when the plant's fluid got into one eye. She lost vision in that eye temporarily. The emergency room initially suspected a stroke before identifying the real cause. Scopolamine is also the active ingredient in what is known on the street as devil's breath, a substance linked to criminal assaults in Colombia. That same compound grows in ornamental gardens across the American South, hanging from branches in full bloom, waiting to be noticed for all the wrong reasons. Halfway through this list, and one thing keeps surfacing. The plants causing the most trouble are not the ones hiding in distant jungles. They are the ones growing 3 feet from your front steps. If this is already shifting how you look at the greenery around you, take a second and subscribe. There is more ahead. Number 11. Gas plant. Sunlight finishes the job. For centuries, people have demonstrated a party trick with this flower. Hold a match near it on a warm evening and watch it flash. The oils that create that flash are the same ones that damage your skin. Dictamnus albus is a perennial that has been planted in European and North American gardens for hundreds of years. Pink or white blossoms, pleasant scent, no thorns, no visible hint of danger. The volatile oils coating its leaves and stems give off a faint lemon smell on warm days. It is the kind of plant you would handle without a second thought. Those oils are phototoxic. They settle on skin and sit there, dormant, until ultraviolet light activates them. You trim the gas plant on a sunny afternoon, brush the residue across your forearm, and by the next morning, blisters have risen in the exact streak where the oil sat. Doctors call the reaction phytophotodermatitis. No thorn, no sting, no warning at all. Just sunlight, finishing what the oil started. Number 10. Giant hogweed. States run dedicated eradication hotlines. Several U.S. states maintain hotlines specifically for reporting sightings of this plant. Workers who remove it are required to wear full-body protection suits, waterproof hand coverings, and sealed eye shields. Heracleum mantegazzianum was brought to North America from Central Asia in the late 1800s as a garden showpiece. People imported it for the size. It grows over 15 feet tall, with broad white flower heads that can span 3 feet across. It looked magnificent in estate gardens. That decision has been unraveling ever since. The plant has spread across the northeastern United States, Canada, and parts of Europe, colonizing roadsides, riverbanks, and empty lots. Multiple states and provinces now run dedicated eradication programs year-round just to contain it. The reason is furanocoumarins, compounds present in the clear, watery liquid that runs through the stems and leaves. When that liquid lands on skin, the furanocoumarins bind to the cells and wait. You feel nothing. No sting, no itch, no redness. Everything stays quiet until ultraviolet light hits the area. Then, the cells begin to die. What follows is a chemical reaction that raises blisters in the exact outline of the contact. Streaks down a forearm. A handprint across the wrist. The blisters can be deep, and the dark marks they leave behind, a discoloration called hyperpigmentation, can persist for years. If the liquid reaches the eyes, partial or permanent blindness is a documented outcome. Some people who brush against giant hogweed on a hiking trail do not realize anything happened until the next sunny day. By then, the damage is already locked in. Number 9. Rue, 2,000 years, still unlabeled. Shakespeare wrote about it. Medieval monks planted it for protection against plague. English judges carried bouquets of it in court, and it causes blistering on contact with sunlight. Ruta graveolens is one of the oldest cultivated herbs in the Western tradition. It has been used in folk medicine, religious ceremonies, and cooking for longer than most written records go back. You can still find it in the herb section of American garden shops today, sitting alongside basil and thyme. Rue contains the same furanocoumarins as giant hogweed. Boil on skin, followed by sun exposure, triggers phytophotodermatitis. The resulting blisters trace the exact lines of contact. There have been documented cases of children playing in gardens with rue whose blistering on arms and legs was initially mistaken for signs of physical abuse, because the marks were so sharp and deliberate-looking that investigators were called before anyone thought to look at the garden. 2,000 years of human use. Still on shelves, still without a single word of caution on the tag. Number 8. Wild parsnip. Your trimmer makes it airborne. This invasive weed is expanding its range across roadsides in the northeastern U.S. and Canada faster than most states can track it. It looks like a dozen harmless wildflowers. Its juice is anything but. Pastinaca sativa grows in dense patches along highway shoulders, ditch banks, and field edges. The flowers are bright yellow, arranged in flat, umbrella-shaped clusters that could easily pass for Queen Anne's lace or any number of common roadside plants. It blends in completely. The juice carries the same sun-triggered compounds found in giant hogweed and rue. Skin contact followed by sunlight produces the same delayed reaction. redness, then raised welts that can take weeks to heal and leave discolored marks for years. But wild parsnip creates a specific danger that the others do not. It grows exactly where people use string trimmers. You are clearing weeds along your fence line on a Saturday afternoon. The trimmer cuts through a patch of parsnip and the juice sprays outward in a fine mist, settling on bare legs and forearms. You feel nothing. By the next morning, after a few hours in the sun, the welts have arrived. Several states and provinces across North America have issued dedicated public health advisories for this plant alone. It may already be growing at the edge of your yard. Number 7. Poison hemlock, Socrates' killer, now spreading fast. In 399 BC, Athens sentenced Socrates to death. The instrument was a cup of hemlock extract. The same species is currently spreading across highway medians in Ohio, Indiana, and Pennsylvania. Conium maculatum belongs to the carrot family. Small white flowers in umbrella-shaped clusters. Tall stems that can reach 10 feet. Feathery leaves. It looks strikingly similar to wild carrot, wild parsnip, and Queen Anne's lace. That resemblance is exactly what makes it so dangerous. People pull it up with bare hands. They mow through it. In some cases, foragers have mistaken it for edible plants and paid for the confusion. The alkaloids inside, primarily coneine and gamma-conicine, attack the nervous connection between the brain and the muscles. Paralysis begins in the legs and moves upward. When it reaches the chest, breathing stops. Ingestion is the primary lethal path, but the plant's liquid can also cause irritation on contact, and if it enters through a cut or broken skin. The compounds have a more direct route into the body. One identifying feature separates poison hemlock from most of its lookalikes. The stems are marked with distinctive purple or reddish blotches, a detail worth remembering if you spend any time near roadsides, trails, or riverbanks where this plant has taken hold. It is spreading faster than most people realize, and the states issuing alerts are growing in number every year. Number 6. Poison sumac, poison ivy's stronger wetland relative. Most people know poison ivy. Far fewer know its relative that grows in wetlands. That gap in recognition is part of what makes this one more dangerous. Toxicodendron vernix is a shrub or small tree found in swampy, waterlogged areas across the eastern United States. It produces urushiol, the same oil responsible for the reaction caused by poison ivy, but typically at a higher concentration. The result is a more intense allergic response that most people are not prepared for. The reaction does not appear right away. Urushiol bonds to skin on contact, but the immune response takes between 6 and 72 hours to show up. By the time the itching starts, by the time the swelling and the fluid-filled welts begin to form, you may have no idea where or when you touched the plant. That delay is what makes poison sumac so difficult to avoid the second time. It grows in the kinds of places people go to get away from everything else. Fishing spots, hunting blinds, bird-watching trails, all of them far from a pharmacy or a doctor. You hike in, feeling fine. You drive home, feeling fine. 2 days later, your forearms are covered in welts and you cannot trace it to a single moment. Number 5. Poison oak. Every exposure hits harder. In California alone, this single species sends more people to dermatologists than any other plant contact. An estimated 350,000 cases of allergic contact dermatitis in the U.S. every year trace back to the urushiol family. Toxicodendron diversilobum blankets hillsides across California, Oregon, and Washington. Its leaves shift shape and color with the seasons, turning red and orange in the fall, which has led people to pick them for autumn arrangements without realizing what they were holding. The urushiol oil is present in every part of the plant, in every season, including the bare stems in winter. The oil is extraordinarily persistent. It can remain active on clothing, tools, and shoes for months. Dogs that run through poison oak carry the oil on their fur and pass it directly to their owners through normal contact. Burning poison oak is even worse. The urushiol becomes airborne in the smoke, producing simultaneous respiratory distress and skin eruptions across the face and body. That combination qualifies as a medical emergency. And here is the part that catches people off guard. Repeated exposure does not build tolerance. It does the opposite. The immune system learns to recognize urushiol more efficiently with each encounter, which means each reaction tends to be more severe than the last. The more often you are exposed, the worse it gets. 1/4 milligram of urushiol, smaller than a grain of table salt, is enough to trigger a full reaction in most sensitized individuals. Number 4. Poison ivy. The rhyme is not enough. Leaves of 3, let it be. That rhyme has been taught for generations, and poison ivy still sends more Americans to urgent care than almost any other plant. Knowing the rhyme and recognizing the plant in real time are entirely different skills. Poison ivy grows in all 48 contiguous states. It shows up as ground cover, as a shrub, and as a climbing vine that scales trees and fences. The leaves shift shape depending on the region and the season. In the fall, they turn red and orange, and people have been known to gather them for autumn arrangements, not realizing what they were picking up. In winter, the leaves drop, but the bare stems still carry urushiol in full concentration. The oil does not expire with the season. Every part of this plant contains urushiol, and less than 1/4 milligram, an amount smaller than a grain of salt, is enough to produce a reaction in most people who have been sensitized. The rash appears in streaky lines following the path of contact, with intense itching that can persist for weeks. One detail worth knowing: poison ivy always has 3 leaflets. Virginia creeper, a harmless lookalike that often grows right alongside it, always has 5. If you cannot count the leaves from where you are standing, you are too close. Number 3. Water hemlock. Seizures within 15 minutes. The USDA calls this the most violently toxic plant that grows in North America. Not the most dangerous, not the most poisonous. Violently toxic. Cicuta maculata belongs to the same carrot family as poison hemlock, and it looks disturbingly similar to wild carrot, parsnip, and other edible relatives. White flowers in flat umbrella clusters, thick stems, a root bulb that can be mistaken for a wild vegetable. The resemblance has cost people their lives. The toxin is cicutoxin, an unsaturated alcohol that targets the central nervous system directly. Symptoms can appear in as little as 15 minutes. Violent seizures, frothing at the mouth, dilated pupils. In lethal cases, respiratory failure follows within hours. There is no long buildup. There is no gradual decline. The body responds with immediate and overwhelming force. In 2022, water hemlock was found growing around White Rock Lake in Dallas, Texas. Dallas Parks and Recreation classified its removal as an urgent priority. The plant had established itself along the shoreline, where families walk, children play, and kayakers launch from the bank. The root is the most concentrated source. When cut or broken, it releases a yellowish-brown liquid so potent that anything it touches becomes a vector for poisoning. Campers, hikers, paddlers along creeks and rivers, these are the people who encounter water hemlock most often, usually miles from the nearest hospital. Recognizing the name means nothing if you cannot recognize the plant in the wild. Number 2. Tree nettle. One touch, one documented death. New Zealand has a stinging nettle that is not the mild garden nuisance most people associate with the word. It is a tree. And there is at least one documented death from contact alone. Urtica ferox is a woody shrub or small tree covered entirely in hollow hairs made of silica. Each hair functions like a microscopic syringe loaded with a complex neurotoxin. When skin brushes against the plant, the tips of the hairs snap off. The shafts puncture the surface, and the toxin is injected directly underneath. The delivery is instant and mechanical, and it does not require pressure. The lightest contact is enough. The pain that follows bears no resemblance to what an ordinary stinging nettle produces. It is severe, often described as electric, and it does not stay local. In serious cases, the toxin affects the broader nervous system, producing muscle weakness, impaired coordination, and prolonged pain episodes that can recur for days or weeks after a single encounter. The documented fatality involved a hunter in the New Zealand bush who pushed through a dense patch of onga-onga without adequate clothing. The extent of skin contact overwhelmed the body's ability to manage the toxin load. There are no signs posted on most trails where tree nettle grows, no railings, no fences, no painted warnings on the trunk. It looks like an ordinary shrub, standing quietly beside the path, covered in fine hairs that catch the light. Nothing about its appearance suggests what a single brush of the arm can set in motion. Number 1. Gympie. Gympie, pain that lasts for months. In the rainforests of northeastern Australia, there is a plant that has caused trained soldiers to require evacuation and has reportedly driven animals to throw themselves off cliffs to escape the pain. Dendrocnide moroides has heart-shaped leaves covered in a fine velvety fuzz. The flowers are small and unremarkable. It could pass for any number of harmless understory plants, but every visible surface is loaded with millions of microscopic silica hairs, each one hollow and filled with a neurotoxin compound that science still does not fully understand. When you touch the leaf, the hairs penetrate the skin, break off, and begin releasing the toxin. The pain is immediate and extreme. People who have experienced it describe a sensation like hot acid being poured on the skin while being electrocuted at the same time. It does not fade. It does not calm down. The hairs remain embedded in the tissue and continue releasing the toxin for weeks. Cold water triggers it. Temperature changes trigger it. The pressure of fabric against the affected area triggers it. There are accounts of the pain persisting for months after a single brush with a leaf. Australian Army personnel have filed detailed reports describing encounters with Gympie-Gympie during training exercises. The severity of the pain was enough to require immediate medical evacuation. Even a dead specimen is not safe. The hairs retain both their shape and their toxin long after the plant itself has dried out. Researchers and forestry workers who operate in areas where Gympie-Gympie grows wear sealed full body suits, chemical-resistant hand protection, and face shields. There is no casual approach to this plant. 20 entries into this list, and one thing is consistent from start to finish. The most dangerous plants are rarely the most exotic. They're the ones you have already walked past without a second look. The distance between seeing a plant and actually knowing it is the distance this entire list has been measuring. How many of these are within walking distance of where you are right now? Drop a comment. And if this changed how you see the green around you, subscribe. There is a lot more worth knowing.